Hi, everybody. This week, we're looking back on 2022 by celebrating the year's superlatives the biggest, the best, the most. Today, we're revisiting the show that made us the hungriest. In September, CityCast Houston newsletter writer Brooke Lewis and I talked with Ope Amosu, founder of the West African restaurant ChopNBlok, one of the brightest successes in the super stylish post Houston. It's Thursday, December 29th, 2022. I'm Lisa Gray, and this is CityCast Houston. Chef Ope, thank you so much for being with us today. How would you describe ChopNBlok to someone who has never been there?
That's a good question. So ChopNBlok, I say it's the cultural crossroads where West African culinary traditions and local communities intersect to share an experience that's fresh, honest, friendly, and flavorful. And really, it's just what I believe has been a life enhancing experience for most of all who get an opportunity to come and fellowship with us.
So, how did you start it? How did you come to start it? And what is your connection to West African food?
Yeah, so I would say I grew up on West African food. I'm Nigerian. Um, was actually born in England, but made it out to Houston by the age of 3, and ultimately grew up in a Nigerian household in America. So definitely something that's been a part of me, just the cultural aspect since day one. And the older I got, and just the further along I got in life and my career, I started just to really feel uneasy about the lack of access there was in the broader community to the culture that I grew up knowing and loving so as well as the lack of acknowledgement for a lot of the contributions that the culture, the diaspora play into broader society. And so I just wanted to take the opportunity to shine light on that. And that's really where the passion for pursuing this came from. Not so much about food,
Uh-huh.
unfortunately. I know people don't really like to hear that, but
You didn't think as a little kid you were going to be a chef?
no, no way, no way. And if I'm very honest, I still don't even really call myself that. I just had to pick up techniques on my way of being able to really channel this story. But as I look at it, to me, the storyline is what's most important. The narrative is what's most important, and I wanted to make sure that if I felt as passionate about it, I had my own opportunity to contribute towards it. So, good food and a good beat is just a universal language that everyone speaks, and so that's why I figured that would be the best medium to be able to make this imprint.
Yeah, and growing up, I know that you have some interesting nicknames that led to your chef journey. I know Chef Homeboy is one of them, and then also you made something called Ope Sauce in elementary school. So can you tell the listeners a little bit about that?
Oh wow, wow! You're really going into the archives.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, food has always been associated with just good times, good experiences, and a lot of nostalgia I have goes back to me participating not as a cook or a chef, but really just savoring the flavors that have come across many plates of mine. But actually, in grade school, like man, I was probably like in like second or third grade, and we had just started, getting access to the school cafeteria. Before then, like lunch would always be brought to the classroom, and so there's different condiments over there, and I figured, hey, let me go ahead and mix a little bit of this ketchup with some mayo and some mustard and salt and pepper. I mean, that's the recipe. It's pretty basic, but and people started dipping their French fries in it, and they gave me the credit for it. So that was what the initial Opie sauce was. But then Chef Homeboy, that came in my college days, actually. Back in my fraternity members gave me that name.
Uh-huh.
I played football in college.
What school?
We also Truman State, Northeast Missouri,
Uh-huh.
and during family weekend, one of the things as a fraternity we'd like to do is just give back to the community at the same time, hang out with the family and parents and everyone coming in, and we would throw big barbecues. And so the very first one, we woke up the day of on Family Day and realized that we had been promoting this barbecue and none of us knew how to cook on a barbecue. None of us knew how to grill. And so, fortunately, there was someone who just happened to be. He actually joined another one of our fraternity members from a different school on this road trip, and he happened to be in the house, and he taught me how to grill. And from there, I took my skills and continued to polish it to the point where they looked at a can of Chef Boyardee and they were like, "No, we're gonna give you Chef Homeboy. That's you." So that's the other nickname I was able to garner. I feel like I earned that one.
So, what were you studying in college? Were you planning to go into business?
Oh, absolutely. So I was a business major, marketing and management. I never really knew exactly what I wanted to do outside of athletics, and but I did feel like, one day I wanted to build something, and I wanted to be able to lead something, and I thought of business really being, where I saw myself in ultimately leading some sort of company. And my natural knack is in marketing, so that's what I channeled. And then, um, you know, after getting out of school, took a couple of sales jobs. I started my career in sales, and then I went and got an MBA at Rice and focused on energy and entrepreneurship, and ultimately became a commercial executive in the energy space.
That is
Yeah.
not anywhere near restaurants.
That's what I'm
No.
saying.
So, what were you doing after you got that? Yeah.
Yeah, so I ended up getting a job
Uh huh.
working on basically helping roll out the production chemicals business for. I was working for GE at the time, globally. So I was in charge of like markets in Southeast Asia and sales teams in Latin America and the Middle East. Spent time in various different regions, lived in Dubai for a little bit, and really like this was this really I graduated in 2014. I was in this career actually from 2014 all the way to 2021. A lot of people didn't know that I was doing this with ChopNBlok at the same time. Um, but yeah, there was really like, it kind of got to that point where, you're pursuing your goals and you kind of have this title and, everything that comes with it. And at the end of the day, like I still kind of felt like, man, this isn't really as satisfying. I didn't feel like a lot of what I was doing really spoke to me in the most natural sense. And that's when I also started asking myself, like, what really matters to me? And, of the many things that matter to me, my culture is like really up there amongst the top. And so that's where I started really like noticing these patterns of, man, like the older I've gotten, it's been tough. I remember in undergrad, like when I got away from the house, it was hard for me to get access to the basic cultural elements, right? Like the music, the food, the language. And then I went back to Houston and I knew where to go find it. And then again, after business school, when I moved around the world, it's like everywhere I went, I always had to do what I did in Houston, which is go to where our immigrant community is and then go and like get food from there. But along the way, like I'm passing by all of these other cultural gateways that have been established in society. And I'm like, man, why do I always have to go out of my way to get access to that little bit of me?
So,
And
gateways for other cultures.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's
yeah.
easy to find,
Again,
say, great Mexican food here or great,
yeah, yeah, food or
you know.
even like,
Uh huh.
I mean, there's been a huge, Afro beats and just, West African musical wave that is now like permeated. But like, I mean, growing up, it wasn't like that. And, but, you started hearing like reggaeton music, like before you heard this, you heard, Caribbean music and stuff. And so, like, to me, it was just, again, always had to go out of my way to get access to it. And I felt like, I've been equipped in different ways to be able to take this charter on. And that's when I said, I'm gonna go do it through food because I like food. Everyone likes food. Everyone likes a good beat. You put those two together, you can get people's attention. And that's when I started becoming more intentional about really understanding like the culinary aspects of things. And that's when I started to immerse myself in culinary. And I had worked in restaurants in college, but never from the standpoint of wanting to, again, go into the food industry. But at that point was when I said, okay, hey, if I'm going to do this and I'm going to create the first, contemporary West African inspired concept, I really need to immerse myself in the culinary field as well. And that's where I really started just getting that experience. First thing I did is I went to go apply for a job at Chipotle because
Wait.
they're always hiring,
Yeah, you
right?
gotta
And I'm
back
like,
up.
let
You
me.
gotta back up. You
So you're
can't
still working.
Yeah.
You're still working as
Yeah, so I'm
as
I'm
an
a
exec
corporate I'm a
flying around.
corporate sales executive in the daytime, and then at
Uh-huh.
nighttime I'm a prep cook at Chipotle. Like
This was in
cutting.
Houston. Where was this?
This was actually in Dallas.
Uh-huh.
I was in Dallas at the time,
Yeah.
bouncing between Dallas and the West Texas oil fields.
Did they know your day job?
A little bit, kind of. I mean, I didn't tell them I was a MBA grad and all of that. I just said, hey, I've worked in restaurants before, and I'm looking for a job as a prep cook. And they like what they saw, so they hired me. And so yeah, like I would do that. I'd balance my hours accordingly, and I'd sometimes be tailing out of the office and heading to the kitchen to go cut peppers. And really, to me though, like I had done prep cook jobs when I was working in restaurants in college, and um, one thing that really stuck out to me, and it's the same thing that stuck out to me in the energy space too, was I saw so much value in those who, unlike myself, that went kind of that MBA route to get into this space and to get into leadership, but those who really worked like out in the field and like really understood the inner workings of what it was that they were doing, could speak the language, and ultimately kind of grew up in that. And so that's the experience I wanted for myself when it came to culinary. Like I really wanted to understand at the base level, like how it works. And as a prep cook, you often get unfortunately overlooked. And so that was a benefit to me, right? Is I could just be very observant, and I was able to better understand, how product flowed in and out of the kitchen, and ultimately, cut my teeth, pay my dues, and along the way, make sure I gained as much respect for that position, because I knew one day, I'm going to be running my own concept, and I want to be able to have that same level of humility, as I, make decisions. So yeah, I was doing both at the same time. And, fortunately, I think because what I'm working on, or the story I'm sharing about the culture and the food that we're serving is still relatively unique to many. And they don't really know what to expect. It just piques a lot of curiosity. And so with that, I was able to, ultimately like take that differentiator and use it as a way to, ultimately help me get access to other folks in the culinary space that were just kind of curious and wanted to support what I was doing. And that's how I started working with, some of the best chefs in the country, and ultimately, understanding how they approach their craft, and, gaining experience from those who really inspired me
So
at the
people
top
like
level.
Marcus Samuelson, or
Yeah, like
Yeah.
Chef Marcus.
Uh-huh.
I mean, even local, like
Yeah.
one of my I would say like I probably can't say that this is my favorite chef. I tell her all the time, I mean, you're my favorite chef. But like Don Burrell,
Uh-huh.
that's my homie.
Yeah.
Chef Don, like she took to me early on. Even when like I was just starting to plan like my pop-up series.
Mm-hmm.
Her name had been passed out to me from another chef I really like, a pastry chef named Karen Mann out here locally as well. And that's how the connection was made. So, I mean, we go back to before, I like to say before she made it, I don't think I've made it yet. I'm just still trying to cut my teeth, but she's made it. But yeah, so worked
Okay.
with her. And then,
Mm-hmm.
it's fortunate, now I'm doing things with, Chef Kwame and Wachi, and have a good relationship now with Chef Eric Ajapong. So it's just been good to see, people really, stand behind and support what I'm doing, and really try to pour into just ultimately seeing this vision succeed.
So it looks to me like ChopNBlok is just succeeding wildly. When I'm there, there's a line. I know lots of people who are raving about, especially that jollof rice, the jambalaya smoky rice that I think is just a great match for Texas and Houston in
Yeah.
particular.
For sure.
Yeah. Are you surprised by like the reception, how enthusiastic it seems to be? Or was this the plan? You had that in your
Yeah,
business
I mean,
plan.
I
Yeah.
say this like with the most like humility there. Like, I'm not surprised, but I'm very appreciative. Um, it's like what I was like, it's why I made this drastic change and like was like, I just really felt like this was a fundamental like flaw in society that had to be fixed. And so, I grew up on this and I often I often reference the iPad. I remember when the iPad was first launched, everyone's like, why do you need an iPad? Like, you don't need one, especially if you already have like a smartphone or an iPod. Like, what do you need a bigger version of it for? And now it's like borderline a necessity is to have a tablet, right? People didn't know what it was that they were missing out on. And that's how I felt about just this story and this culture. And, I really didn't want anyone else to like have um the power to like misinterpret it or share it incorrectly, and that's why I took a lot of ownership behind it. But no, I think we have the ancestors to thank for how successful it's been. Because the other thing too is that it influences the culture that I'm discussing, right? It's what over 50 million people in this country come from, right? And it influences beyond that as well. And so the reason that I really believed it was going to be successful is because people are already like eating these foods and flavors and so on today. They just aren't understanding like where it originated from. So all we're doing is really just kind of helping that to resurface and give its credit where it's due, and share it in a nice positive light. And so it's been great to see the reception. I'm very, very appreciative of it. But I believed in it since the beginning, and I continue to.
It looks to me like it is like this great concept. I can very easily imagine Chipotle like restaurants, chop and blocks across the country. Is that what you're going for? Can I hope that you're
Amen.
doing it?
Amen. I mean, I don't know about Chipotle numbers; those are a lot of numbers, but
But y'all are good. All right.
but
Yeah.
definitely, I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
won't sell it short either.
Yeah.
The vision for this is again to take my skill set that I feel like God has blessed me with and exposed me with, and you know, taking the business aspect of things I'm familiar with, and ultimately, like, my intention was always to build this to scale. So giving it the runway to be able to do so. Houston makes a lot of sense for this to be the first location, just because Houston has the second largest, the second largest West African community outside of West Africa, the largest Nigerian community in the states, and there's other major cities that are not that far behind, right? And so I look at just the fact that again the diaspora has such a large imprint on communities. I'm pretty sure that you can reference a classmate or a friend, a coworker who comes with this background, and so it's not necessarily foreign for you to venture out and give it a shot. And there's so many markets where that's still the case. So the vision is building this thing to scale and then being able to let it do its thing. And my prayer is that it is definitely beyond Houston.
Yeah, and just what's next for ChopNBlok? I know that you just said you hinted at possibly expanding. Is there a new site popping up anytime soon, or?
I wish I could announce one. Working on one.
Uh-huh.
Definitely working on it for sure. So I have a few ongoing conversations with multiple spaces, just trying to see where the right fit's going to be. If there's anyone that's interested in seeing a ChopNBlok, also feel free to reach out. Always open to those conversations as well. But no,
Uh-huh.
in all seriousness though, like I'm confident in saying like, yeah, growth is really important to us, but growing intentionally, like not just growing for the sake to grow, but really being intentional about it. And being able to understand where and when it makes sense for us to be where it is that we're ordered to be. And that's important. And then the other thing too is we're not just a restaurant, in my opinion. Like, we're just really living out a mission. Our mission is to share the beauty of West African culture through food that reshapes society's daily routine. And the restaurant helps us to get people's attention, but there's other tentacles that I would love to be able to pull people into, because, my goal is when people walk into the restaurant, like, yeah, you came for the food or you came because you taste the flavors, but then like you really had an experience, and it doesn't have to be over the top, but maybe you heard some music that like you don't really hear all the time and that, you're really appreciative of, or maybe it's, our, the cookbooks that we have on the shelves, or, just really even like just any form of like knowledge or information that you can pull in that 5, 10, 15 minutes that you're waiting for your food. Like that's what's really important to me. And so, I think if you look at like how we came up with pop-ups and, experiences, like those haven't died either. So we're looking at doing more of those, more programming as well. And ultimately just, seeing, you know, how best it is that we can really, live our mission.
Yeah, I was going to just touch on one last thing that you said about the pop-up experiences, because I noticed that, you did a promotion, like a cross promotion with Yvonne Orji, who's a popular actress on Insecure, who a lot of people know, who's also a very proud Nigerian woman. And then also I've seen that you guys did something with Kindred earlier, which, that's a bookstore. So I've seen how you guys are branching out of just the normal restaurant world. Can we expect, in the coming months, is there a specific event coming up?
Yeah, more heat on the way for sure. Yeah, I mean, we're all about like the friends of the block is what we call them. Like Yvonne has really become like a very solid friend of the block. Y'all should check out her HBO special that's on HBO right now called Mama I Made It.
It is
And
very
she has
funny.
another one that's coming out on October 1st. I'm gonna be out there with her in LA on that day as well, so I'm excited for that. But yeah, definitely like any way that we can amplify the voices of those who are also pushing this narrative alongside us, we're all for it. Made good relationships with kindred stories here locally. And so we are always in conversations of ways to work together. Even right now, looking at ways that we can work together in store too, so that relationship just kind of continues to grow on a day-to-day basis. We are planning some programming at the end of November for our 1 year anniversary. And so, more coming up on that. I don't want to spill the beans too much because we still got some more signatures to get before I feel comfortable doing that. But I do look forward to promoting that. So if you are, following us on our social media, specifically on Instagram at ChopNBlok, ChopNBlok more information is definitely coming that way, or even better, go on our website and sign up on our block list. And that's where all that information, first gets channeled out. But absolutely, end of November, big programming on the way. Hopefully you that are all listening to it will be in attendance.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much. I can't wait to see what you're going to do.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for taking the time and the conversation. And yeah, I'm just excited. I love just kind of seeing, God's purpose shine out in what we do. So I'm very grateful.
Yeah, this makes me want ChopNBlok, so I'll go again this weekend.
That's the danger. That was Ope Amosu, the founder of ChopNBlok, and Brooke Lewis, who writes the CityCast newsletter, Hey Houston. One quick update. Since we recorded that episode, Amosu has continued to bask in media love. In June, he was one of the chefs that Bloomberg Businessweek picked to share their Juneteenth menus. And in October, he was in a New York Times story about West African chefs. That is all for our show today. Tomorrow, we'll be finishing up our week of superlatives with Houston's biggest celebration. You don't want to miss that. We'll talk with you then. That was Chef Ope Amosu and Houston, wherever the heck we are. I started to call her Houston Chronicle.